Good evening. Give me just a minute to get myself squared away. Good evening. Is everybody ready? Well, good afternoon. Sheriff Brad Riley, Cabarrus County Sheriff. Thank you all for being here today. In light of recent threats to not only groups of crowds, but specifically our schools and our children and our communities, I think it's important, and I wanted to communicate a very important message directly to our public and our citizens and our community. Unfortunately, we had a physical threat attempted at Northwest Cabarrus Middle School today, where a 13-year-old juvenile student retrieved a knife from her book bag and threatened a teacher. A different teacher was able to assist in subduing the juvenile and securing the knife. Within seconds of the incident, Cabarrus County School Resource Officer arrived to the classroom area and assisted. After further investigation, it was quickly determined that the juvenile offender did also have an unloaded .25 caliber handgun and separated ammo in her book bag. Investigators were able to conduct a search of the juvenile's residence and also located and seized other firearms within the residence, which included 3 shotguns and 3 handguns. Juvenile is currently undergoing mental evaluation and faces charges, naturally felony, bringing a firearm onto school grounds, and assault on a school or government official, and maybe others. Again, with the pending status of being a juvenile, there's complexities with how that will be pursued, but we will continue to forge forward. The parents have also been charged with misdemeanor failure to secure firearms from a minor. Both of those have been very cooperative in the investigation. Both have been charged and released at this time, and investigation will further be ongoing. Our message today is that this type of behavior in Cabarrus County is not going to be tolerated, whether it's a physical threat such as today or even copycat. In light of all of the things that have gone wrong in our society and in the United States today, we're going to hold people responsible to the fullest level of the law. We feel like that's very important for us to do, and feel like that is the safest way to keep our community safe. We have to begin to think in different ways and further measures of dealing with copycats. Not that this was a copycat, but we see those more and more prevalent now. And we have to send a clear message that it's very difficult to determine between a real and a copycat. Therefore, it's important that we treat them all as real, and we have to carry through with the same sense into our investigations, into our potential charges. So we take this very serious, and we want our citizens to know that we're very thankful that Cabarrus County took measures along with the Cabarrus County school system with their guidance 2 or 3 years ago to place armed sworn law enforcement in every one of our schools in the cities and in the county. And we think that that's a high priority. We're very thankful to have a Cabarrus County school administration system that works very closely with us, that understands, trains with our individuals, and communicates with our staff on a regular basis to allow something like this to be taken care of in very minimal time. We're very thankful that there were no injuries to anyone today. We're very thankful that this was isolated to this individual and to this particular area of the school, in which we don't feel like any other parts of the school we were even aware of this, that it took place, and it was swiftly handled and taken care of. taken into custody or at least secured in all forms and fashion very quickly. That's about all the information that I have for you to put out. I'll be glad to take a few questions, and then I'll be around and answer any questions that you may have on the sidebar. Northwest Cabarrus Middle School. It did, yes, ma'am. Well, naturally, there was a commotion, and then another teacher came in and assisted with subduing the individual within seconds. We had an officer, our school resource officer, in less than a minute, was in the classroom, and of course, the individual was already secured and the knife secured at that point.
You said the handgun was found in the student's backpack. Was it registered to their parents?
I don't know that we've got any of the forensics back on any of that, but in the state of North Carolina, firearms are not registered. But we will be looking into the lawfulness of their properly purchasing it.
Sheriff, had there been a threat that you were monitoring specific to this situation?
This was as I stated, this was isolated, occurred just today. We had no forementioning or opportunity to know of any prior threat associated with this incident.
Has there been any history of issues with this student before?
Not that I'm aware of. Again, we're in the early stages of that part of the investigation, just because naturally that, as I stated before, then you know, there are other protocols that take place with that individual that I won't get into any details about, but we'll need to spend more time in and around evidence around that individual and communicating with that individual and so on.
What grade are they in?
13-year-old. I know it's middle school. I think it is the 7th grade, but I'll have to confirm that for you.
Do you have any reason to believe that this may have been a copycat situation?
At this point, I couldn't say that it's a copycat. I mean, we have approached it and we'll continue to approach it as it appears, and that is that someone came to a school with intentions of at least brandishing weapons that could potentially harm folks, and that's against the law. So we're going to approach it from that perspective, and I think we all have to look at it from a standpoint that it was isolated to that individual and whatever their intent was.
Did you say this was a male or female student?
I just said it was a juvenile. I don't know that it matters that it was male or female, but it was a female 13-year-old juvenile.
Do you know if this 13-year-old male early in the investigation that had any prior disciplinary issues?
I hadn't got to that extent yet.
You mentioned that the gun was not loaded. Did the student have, I believe I heard you say they had ammunition, is that correct?
That's correct.
But the gun was not loaded at the time?
It was an unloaded firearm with separated ammo.
And as far as you know, you said the target was the teacher?
Again, I'm not getting too far into the evidence at this point. I can say that it was initiated with a brandish of a knife towards the teacher. That's what started the entire incident.
Well, I know you said that the rest of the school may not have known if other things were taking place, but was the school placed on lockdown or any additional security measures put in place?
I mean, naturally, this happened so quickly, and as I told you before, it was, to the best of my knowledge at this point, within a minute, everything was already secured and safe. There was not, I mean, it was clearly an isolated circumstance, and naturally, all safety precautions were taken in and around that particular area as we would. But as far as notifying the rest of the school, no, there was no need for that. There was not a potential for any threat to bleed beyond that particular area.
Was any message sent out to parents about it?
The school system usually deals with the messaging back to parents, and we did communicate, as we have a great partnership with the Cabarrus County school system, but I can't tell you and confirm what that messaging, when that messaging, and that type of thing. But I do know that they were handling that part of it.
Was the teacher ever threatened with the gun, or did you just find the gun throughout your investigation?
The gun was located in the book bag, and the book bag was not with the student in her hand. It was, so no, it was not used in any way, shape, or form up to that point.
Sheriff, are you in support of arming teachers?
I mean, we have armed individuals that are there. I'm very in support. I think that's priority one, as I said before. I think that's a long discussion that needs to be taking place. It's not that there couldn't be circumstances that you look at that would be conducive to that, but with armed officers in and the potential that if schools felt like they needed more, my first priority would be add more law enforcement that are already trained, that already have those in those environments. And that's, like I said, that's a longer story with a whole lot more information to follow that up on.
Sheriff, what do you feel needs to be done? Because there have been several threats in several school districts, but specifically in this one over the last few days, whether it was a bomb threat, a gun threat, what more do you need?
Well, you know, that's the magical question. I'm not real sure what the exact answer is, but what we believe is that, again, I feel like that we, for the last 3 years, have provided that first priority of putting law enforcement in the schools. I think that presence, you know, will we go back and determine, is that enough? Does there more that needs to be done? Naturally, we'll be brainstorming all kinds of different things, but we definitely have to do more. And I think the more is that, as I stand here and talk before you, is to send a message to the public that next step is that we're taking them serious. No longer can we look at the individual as being just a student and a juvenile and it being, you know, at that level, and that we no longer take it. We have to treat these individuals as though their act of threat to harm large groups of people, specifically in a school environment, as being an adult crime. And I think that if we start sending that serious message to folks and doing something about it, that hopefully folks will realize that even the copycat side of that, to me, is just as serious. If you go and just make a threat, even in a joking manner, from this day forward, in light of everything that's going on, we have to take that serious, and we have to start prosecuting people in that manner.
Specifically in your area, how has the volume of threats changed since the coercion?
Naturally, I think, you know, I don't want to speak specifically to here. I communicate with sheriffs and other law enforcement agencies in and around here, and I think we're all victims of there being a whole lot more discussions and somewhat, and you know, it just depends on how you look at it. But yeah, anytime you have a national something that's nationally put out through the media and folks are able to see it, it naturally takes on a life of its own in different places, and so you will see some of those things rear their head, and we've been able to see that since the Parkland.
Are you seeing them more, or are you just taking them more seriously in light of it?
We've always tried to take them seriously, but as we see more, and I don't know that every time we see a major events such as Parkland take place, you see a rise in those things being copycatted, thank goodness, around, and then it settles back down. But what I'm saying is that, you know, maybe we're not over that wave of this one yet, but enough is enough. And I think we've always taken them serious, but we now are going to pursue every single one of our threats in a manner as though that you were intending to harm someone. And we have to get a message to these parents and to these kids that you can no longer strike the fear in people's hearts, because it is changing in our citizenry way of thinking. It changes things with them now.
Sheriff, you mentioned that you all seized weapons from the home of the parents, Were they locked up?
Again, I had just a little bit of time to prepare for this. I can't tell you specifics as to where they got them, how they got them, and this and that, other than just reporting what information I have available. We do, I mean, naturally, we charge them with failure to secure a firearm from a minor, so it's obvious that there's at least enough probable cause to believe that the one particular firearm was not secured.
Again, I don't know how far along they're on the investigation, but as far as any social media presence that this student had, were there any threats there or any indication?
If there is, I couldn't speak to it. That's evidence that we would protect at this point.
I came in late. The parents were arrested as well as the student?
The student being a juvenile has to take a different process So we're in the midst of doing that. I wouldn't say that there are present charges on that individual, other than the fact that we're very concerned that that individual is secured in some form or fashion in the system, and we will continue to monitor and follow that. But the parents have been charged also.
So would it be fair to say the juvenile arrest, they're in your custody?
What's that?
The juvenile is in police custody?
They're not in our custody right now. As I said, that there's a mental evaluation, which is pretty standard for this type of, that evaluative process will take place first, and then we'll work with the court system to make, being a juvenile, you can't just take them straight into adult charges. There's a process you have to go in, to go through to bind those over. Again, that will be our consideration. Again, to take it to the fullest extent of the law, I think that we have to pursue that, but that will be a discussion that will take place at some point in the near future between the court system, juvenile system, our district attorney, and myself.
And just to clarify, you mentioned that in every Cabarrus County school, there are armed SROs, is that accurate?
We have placed, basically, we have an armed person assigned to every school in Cabarrus County. Yeah, failure to secure a firearm from a minor. Going back to your question, I want to make it also understood that, within Cabarrus County, we have Concord City, who also provides their share of, that's a partnership within all of our school system, in which Concord and Kannapolis also assist in filling the schools that they're responsible for. Any other questions? All right, hearing none, we'll be done with this portion of it, and I'll stick around if you have any questions or